Hey everybody, I'm Joshua Orro, host of Mustang Prince Orro Reports. Now, today, I'm going to present a new countdown video for all of you. And this is a subject that I've been wanting to do ever since 2015. Now, as most of you know, I've been performing on stage with my friends at Musical Theater Village ever since fall 2005, but my love for theater actually began in December 2000 while I was performing in elementary school choir. And over the years, I've been performing in many classical stage musicals like The Music Man, Hello Dolly, The Wizard of Oz, and more. Also, ever since mid-June 2021, I've returned to acting on stage again after being cooped up during the COVID era, with wonderful and fun shows like Annie and Seussical. And not only did I bring a great newcomer to the theater, but during Queen's Ball, Musical Theater Village's annual awards ceremony, I became the winner of the Mark Schwartz Award, which is given to actors who put all their heart into whatever role they're given. Also, for as long as I can remember, I've been seeing many films based on beloved stage musicals, some old classic favorites, and a few brand new ones. And for this special video, I've gathered 10 movies based on stage musicals to see which one is my all-time favorite. Now, I must give everybody a heads up that the films on this list must be ones that went to screen after their stage versions. Also, live versions like Hamilton are not allowed to be on this list. Also, if you folks disagree with the choices I picked out, then it's alright. We all have our own tastes. However, if some of your favorites are not on this list, either I haven't heard of them, seen them yet, or I didn't think they'd be good enough to be on this list. So, for everyone watching, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. For this is the top 10 films based on a stage musical.
Frantic rehearsals, opening nights, strike up the band, bring out the lights, a little Broadway magic tonight. Broadway magic, fingers snapping, Broadway magic, toes tapping, Broadway magic.
Before Shrek, Stephen Sondheim and James Lapine gave us a very serious fairy tale musical which explores the consequences of the characters' wishes and quests. The story focuses on a childless baker and his wife and their quest to begin a family, along with their interactions with a witch who has placed a curse on them, and their interactions with other storybook characters like Little Red Riding Hood, Jack, Cinderella, and Rapunzel. And thanks to the magic of Disney, the show was adapted into a big screen film in 2014 with direction from Rob Marshall. To me, this adaptation, like the show, is dark, serious, mature, tragic, and thought-provoking. And I like how each story intertwines with one another. And I'll never forget the time when me and my sister blogged this movie during my 3rd season. Also, I think actors like Meryl Streep, Anna Kendrick, James Corden, Emily Blunt, Chris Pine, and Daniel Huddleston are absolutely amazing, and I think Lila Crawford does a great job for her first film role. However, the reason why this film is on the bottom of the list is because, in my personal opinion, Stephen Sondheim's style is not really one of my favorites, mainly due to the songs being very serious and sometimes difficult to understand. Trust me, I've been through a very similar situation during voice class in college. Also, I feel like Johnny Depp's role as the wolf, while decent, is kind of a waste of talent. Plus, the second half of the movie kind of drags for me. Also, if it wasn't for COVID, me and my friends at theater would be performing this show last year. But now that almost everyone is getting their vaccines and boosters, I hope someday Musical Theater Village can officially get the stage rights to do their own production of this show. Also to note, during the making of this list, Stephen Sondheim sadly passed away recently at the age of 91, and I just hope that Steven Spielberg's upcoming version of West Side Story will be dedicated to his memory. Overall, Into the Woods is a movie that you should check out if you're into fairy tale crossovers, and it gives a good moral regarding people's actions and behaviors, and of course, always be careful what you wish and what path you take.
Broadway magic, fingers snapping. Broadway magic, toes tapping. Broadway magic.
Now, I wasn't always into the horror genre up until the mid-2000s, but that's a story for next October. Anyway, back in 2008, when my Musical Theater Village friends were doing Little Shop, I sadly didn't get the chance to perform in it with them due to Boy Scout summer camp in Hawaii. But that didn't stop me from watching the 1986 film version directed by the Muppets' Frank Oz. For those who may not remember or who have not seen my blog from 2017, Little Shop of Horrors is a musical adaptation of an old 1960s B-movie which was created by Roger Corman. It centers on a geeky florist shop worker named Seymour Krelborn, who discovers a strange and interesting fly trap, which he calls an Audrey 2 on the day of a solar eclipse. However, later on, Seymour finds out that not only does the plant have a mind of its own, but it has an appetite for human blood. In my eyes, this is a fun movie, especially for laughs, along with memorable characters and catchy songs provided by the great Alan Menken and his collaborator Howard Ashman, whom, after this film, did the songs for Disney's The Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast. Some of my favorite songs in this film include the title song, Little Shop of Horrors, Skid Row, and Some Fun Now, sung by Crystal, Ronette, and Chiffon, and I also like Audrey's song, Somewhere That's Green, which in my opinion is really beautiful and romantic. And I also like Audrey 2's songs like Feed Me / Get It, Supper Time, and Mean Green Mother, performed by Levi Stubbs. Another thing that I liked about this movie are the guest stars like John Candy, Bill Murray, Jim Belushi, and others. However, the reason why this film is so low on my list is because of the ending. Now, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying having it end on a happy note compared to the stage version could make several fans pretty disappointed. But still, I think Audrey 2's destruction from electricity was a pretty epic monster death. Oh, and speaking of which, it's been about 5 years since I put Audrey 2 on my top 13 scariest monsters in a live-action film list. Also, nowadays, every time I watch this movie, it brings back memories from when I got my chance to perform in it during my senior year of high school in 2009 with the Off the Wall Company at THHS as a Skid Row wino and an Audrey 2 puppeteer, and during 2017 with my Musical Theater Village friends as Orin Scrivello DDS. Also, I'll never forget seeing Alan Menken's concert at the Segerstrom Concert Hall back in late September 2016. Overall, once you watch Little Shop, it'll give you and all mankind a reminder to not feed the plants.
Broadway magic, fingers snapping. Broadway magic, toes tapping. Broadway magic.
Throughout the year 2021, there have been several films being released with help from the talented Lin-Manuel Miranda. I mean, yes, I've already blogged Vivo, and that was amazing, and this month, Lin did songs for Disney's 60th animated film, Encanto, and he also had his directorial debut with Netflix's Tick Tick Boom. However, what better film to choose for the number 8 spot than Lin's very own In the Heights? Now, this was the very first stage musical that Lin-Manuel Miranda has ever written songs for, and it was the first Lin-Manuel Miranda movie of 2021. The film tells the story of a corner in the Dominican Washington Heights neighborhood of Upper Manhattan in New York City, where every member of the community pursues their dreams of a better life. Now, since I plan to do a full blog on this movie someday, maybe next year, I won't give away too much detail. However, in my eyes, this film has a pretty relatable and serious story. It has several memorable and sympathetic characters, amazing choreography provided by Christopher Scott, and catchy songs, despite the fact that I'm not too much of a rap fan. Plus, I really like the setting of upper-class New York, and I thought Anthony Ramos does an outstanding performance as the main character, Uznavi. And I also thought the blackout moment in the middle of the movie was pretty intense, and I also thought Abuela Claudia's death was really sad. Plus, I think John M. Chu does a great job directing this movie, and just recently, I heard that he'll be directing the upcoming film version of Steven Schwartz's Wicked, which I'm definitely excited about. Overall, while this film was a box office bomb in cinemas, I still think everyone who loves Lin-Manuel Miranda's work should definitely give this movie a watch, and it'll give you the feeling of dancing in the hood.
Broadway magic, finger snapping. Broadway magic, toe tapping. Broadway magic.
Alright folks, y'all know what's coming. Let's talk about the classics. Of course, no list of films based on stage musicals would ever be complete without talking about several of the oldies from before my generation. And I suppose you folks are wondering, which films will I be including? Well, I could fill this entire list with classical movie musicals, but when you watch one of these, you might notice several similarities due to the memorable characters, romantic stories, and unforgettable classic songs. Plus, some have a pretty similar time setting. Also, these films have become fan favorites to many fans of musical theater and, of course, to many families. What I'm going to do for this spot is group at least 8 classic movie musicals that are some of the most memorable and favorable films that I've grown up with, ever since before I started acting on stage. So, with that said, the classic movie musicals for the number 7 spot are Oliver, Oklahoma, The Sound of Music, Godspell, West Side Story, My Fair Lady, The Music Man, and Hello, Dolly.
Broadway magic, finger snapping. Broadway magic, toe tapping. Broadway magic.
Ooh, now we're getting into the really good stuff. Back in summer 2003, I was first introduced to this ABBA musical during a vacation in Las Vegas, and after seeing it on stage, not only was it outstanding in my opinion, but my mom told me that she and several of her BFFs from college were addicted to these ABBA songs. And during my high school age, when I heard news of a movie adaptation of Mamma Mia, you better believe that me and my family were absolutely excited. By the way, for those who are not familiar with the show, it centers on Donna, an independent hotelier in the Greek islands who is preparing for her daughter Sophie's wedding with some help from her 2 old friends, Rosie and Tanya. Meanwhile, Sophie, the spirited bride, has a plan. She secretly invites 3 men from her mother's past in hopes of meeting her real father and having him escort her down the aisle on her big day. To me, some parts about this movie are a bit mature and sometimes pretty frustrating while figuring out who really is Sophie's dad, and there are also a few romantic complications. Plus, there are a few moments that are fun and hilarious. Plus, songs like Honey Honey, SOS, Super Trooper, Gimme Gimme Gimme, Dancing Queen, Voulez-Vous, and many others make me want to jump up and disco dance the night away. Also, I think Katherine Johnson, who wrote the book on the original stage show, did a great job on the film's screenplay. Plus, I think the main character Donna, while under a lot of stress, is pretty relatable. Her daughter Sophie is a fun, outgoing 20-year-old young lady. Tanya and Rosie are fun and pretty colorful characters. And I think Bill, Sam, and Harry are pretty interesting and memorable due to them being connected to Donna's past. Also, I'm really impressed with many of the cast members like Meryl Streep, Amanda Seyfried, Christine Baranski, Julie Walters, Pierce Brosnan, Colin Firth, Stellan Skarsgård, and Dominic Cooper. Plus, believe it or not, this movie became the 5th highest grossing movie of 2008. So much so that it surprisingly gained a sequel 10 years later. And hopefully someday, I should give Mamma Mia a full blog if I can find a collaborator to join me. But until that ever happens, give this movie a watch. Mamma Mia, a movie that'll make you into the dancing queen.
Broadway magic, finger snapping. Broadway magic, toe tapping. Broadway magic.
Now, this list wouldn't be complete without talking about the show that reunited me with my musical Theater Village friends this year. Now, as I previously stated, I've been in Annie several times throughout my years performing on stage, whether being in 2009, 2012, 2015, and of course, summer 2021. But you folks are probably thinking, is the 1982 movie with Aileen Quinn on this list? Well, sadly, no. And of course, the 2014 version is definitely not going to be on here either, especially if you viewers have seen my blog from 2015, or the time when I put it on my top 13 films that I hate back in 2018. No. For this spot, I'm going to include the 1999 Disney TV version, Annie 1999. In my opinion, this version sticks a lot closer to the Broadway show compared to the 1982 film. Plus, it's been about 5 months since I blogged this version. Anyway, to make it simple, I think the setting of 1930s New York looks pretty good. The Warbucks mansion looks grand and rich, while Hannigan's orphanage looks very messy and unpleasant. Plus, I'm impressed that this special got 2 Emmy Awards and a George Foster Peabody Award. Also, some of my favorite songs in this version include Maybe, Tomorrow, Easy Street, I Think I'm Gonna Like It Here, Never Fully Dressed Without a Smile, and of course, NYC. Plus, I think Rob Marshall did great for his directorial debut, and I think Alicia Morton, for her first film role, did a fantastic and a sweet performance playing Annie. Also, I like the other cast members like Victor Garber as Oliver Warbucks, Audra McDonald as Grace Farrell, Kathy Bates as Agatha Hannigan, Alan Cumming as her brother Daniel Francis Hannigan, aka Rooster, aka Danny the Dip, and Kristen Chenoweth as Lily St. Regis. Overall, Disney's TV adaptation of Annie is a really charming and touching movie, and it'll prove that the sun will always come out tomorrow.
Broadway magic, finger snapping. Broadway magic, toe tapping. Broadway magic.
Now, are you guys ready to rock? Because for the number 4 spot, we have Rock of Ages. Now, this movie, set in 1987, is centered on an aspiring singer from Oklahoma named Sherry Christian, who travels to Los Angeles, California. There, she meets and falls in love with Drew, a bar back at the legendary club known as the Bourbon. With stars in their eyes, the young lovers chase their dreams, but a misunderstanding involving rock god Stacey Jacks threatens to tear them apart. Now, unlike Mamma Mia, which has songs by ABBA, this movie is built around classic rock songs from the 80s. From the famous glam metal bands like Styx, Journey, Bon Jovi, Pat Benatar, Twisted Sister, Steve Perry, Poison, and Europe. To me, Rock of Ages, while sometimes a bit raunchy, this movie makes me think back to the history of rock and roll that I've been learning about in college back in 2014, the year I blogged this movie. Heck, even my dad told me some pretty cool facts regarding rock and roll during my childhood. By the way, some of my favorite rock songs include Jukebox Hero, I Want to Know What Love Is, Wanted Dead or Alive, Hit Me With Your Best Shot, and many, many more. Also, after I saw Rock of Ages in theaters, it gave me the inspiration to buy and listen to the original versions on iTunes and YouTube. Plus, I think Julianne Hough and Diego Boneta are such a great team while performing as Drew and Sherry, and I'm also very impressed with Tom Cruise's performance as Stacey Jax. Plus, I'm surprised that Tom has been singing 5 hours a day to prepare for his role, which is really impressive in my eyes. Overall, with a movie like Rock of Ages, it'll give you the inspiration to never stop believing and rock on.
Broadway magic, fingers snapping. Broadway magic, toes tapping. Broadway magic.
Now, let's face it, this film just had to go on my list. Why? Because it's The Phantom of the Opera, one of the most classic stage musicals ever made. Based on the 1910 French novel by Gaston Leroux, the plot revolves around a beautiful soprano named Christine Daae, who becomes the obsession of a mysterious masked musical genius living in the subterranean labyrinth beneath the Paris Opera House. In my eyes, even though I still have not seen the stage version in person yet, as mentioned during my blog from October 2020, I think the setting in 1870s Paris is wonderful, the Opera Populaire is a grand theater, and the Phantom's lair is very mysterious. Plus, I think the songs by Andrew Lloyd Webber and Charles Hart are classical, haunting, and emotional. Also, the story is dark, mysterious, epic, thought-provoking, and intense, and I think Joel Schumacher did an outstanding job directing this movie. Also, I think Emmy Rossum does an amazing job as Christine, and her singing voice was very, very beautiful. Patrick Wilson is dashing and daring as Raoul. Madame Giry, played by Miranda Richardson, was a very mysterious character, and Gerard Butler does a remarkable job as the Phantom. Plus, I thought his backstory was very, very surprising. With a movie like this, The Phantom of the Opera will always be here inside your mind.
Broadway magic, fingers snapping. Broadway magic, toes tapping. Broadway magic.
Now, believe it or not, this is a film that surprisingly came out in theaters not too long after I learned about it during my drama class at high school. This film centers around Tracy Turnblad, who dreams of dancing on a local TV dance program known as The Corny Collins Show. When Tracy wins a role on the show, she becomes an instant celebrity overnight, leading to social change as Tracy campaigns for the show's integration. In my eyes, this movie captures the feeling of early 1960s Baltimore to a T, and I think the story feels reminiscent to what life was like during that decade when rhythm and blues were still pretty new and African Americans were treated like second-class citizens, which kind of makes this movie pretty political, especially with songs like I Know Where I've Been. Speaking of which, the Black Lives Matter event and the George Floyd protest from last year was the reason why I decided to blog this movie during my 8th season last year. Plus, I think Adam Shankman did a great job directing this movie, just like with Rock of Ages. Nikki Blonsky does an outstanding performance for her first film role as Tracy, and John Travolta is very humorous as her mom Edna. Also, throughout this movie, Tracy has a few great friends like Penny Pingleton, played by Amanda Bynes, Link Larkin, played by Zac Efron, Seaweed, played by Elijah Kelly, his talented sister Inez, played by Taylor Parks, and his mom, Motormouth Maybelle, played by Queen Latifah. However, other characters like Penny's mom Prudy, played by Allison Janney, is very unreasonable, overprotective, and religious, and Velma Von Tussle, the WYZT manager, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, is a very racist and scheming lady who pushes her daughter Amber, played by Brittany Snow, to seek the stardom that she never had. Also to note, some of my favorite songs in this movie include The Nicest Kids in Town, Welcome to the 60s, Good Morning Baltimore, Run and Tell That, and You Can't Stop the Beat. Overall, if you're a redhead, a blonde, or a brunette, just take my advice and you might just get the only thing better than Hairspray is this movie. Now, before we move on to the number one spot, let's take a look at a few honorable mentions. You know, this list was really difficult, and it really took me about 6 years to organize. We've talked about movie musicals that were about fairy tale crossovers, classical oldies, horror comedies, and ones that feature songs by amazing 80s rock bands. But I guess you're probably asking, which movie musical will top my list? Well,
Broadway magic, finger snapping. Broadway magic, toe tapping. Broadway magic.
now, I'm not sure if you folks will think this choice was predictable, but the main reason why this movie is my number one pick is because not only would I want to give it a huge applause, but I would also want it to put me in tears too. Anyway, based on the 1862 novel by Victor Hugo, set in early 19th century France during the French Revolution, Les Miserables is the story of Jean Valjean and his desire for redemption after serving 19 years in jail for stealing a loaf of bread for his sister's starving child. Later on, Valjean decides to break his parole and start a new life after a bishop inspires him with a tremendous act of mercy. But a police inspector named Javert refuses to let him escape justice and pursues him. Along the way, Valjean and a slew of characters are swept into the June 1832 rebellion in Paris, France, where a group of young idealists attempt to overthrow the government at a street barricade. By the way, before I saw the 2012 film in theaters, I've seen Les Mis being performed at several performing arts schools, and to me, as I said during my blog of the movie last year, to this very day, this musical story is very serious, mature, dark, thought-provoking, and tear-jerking. Also, I think Jean Valjean is a very noble man, like when he helps a worker whom was trapped under a cart. He adopts Cosette after her mother Fantine got sick and dies. He joins the Abbassy in their revolution against the monarchy, and he also helps Marius when he got injured. Cosette is a very sweet and important character, and I think she and Marius make a loving couple. Javert is a real douchebag for pursuing Valjean, and the Thénardiers are really despicable for keeping Cosette as a scullery maid. Also, I think the barricade scene is really intense when most of the Abbassy get killed. Plus, I'm really impressed with Tom Hooper's directing, and this was before his take on Andrew Lloyd Webber's Cats. And I think most of the movie's cast do fantastic jobs, like Hugh Jackman, Amanda Seyfried, Anne Hathaway, Samantha Barks, and Eddie Redmayne. Plus, some of my favorite songs in this movie are At the End of the Day, Castle on a Cloud, Master of the House, Who Am I, Bring Him Home, One Day More, and Do You Hear the People Sing. Also to note, Les Mis won 3 Golden Globe Awards and 4 British Academy Film Awards, which is really excellent in my eyes. So, with all that said, Les Miserables has got to be the absolute best film based on a stage musical that I've ever seen, and truly deserves the #1 spot on my list. Well, that about wraps it up for my top 10 films based on a stage musical. And looking back on these movies kind of makes me realize how far I've come while performing on stage, whether being at school, church, or with Musical Theater Village. And let me tell you, I'm deeply looking forward to performing in new shows next year, like Once Upon a Mattress, Willy Wonka, and Shrek. And I'm also looking forward to seeing new film musicals that may be coming up in the future, like Wicked, Matilda, Spring Awakening, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, The King and I, Memphis, and many more. Anyway, that's all for now. Be sure to join me for my next video. Mustang Power.
Singers and dancers stepping in time. Music you hum, lyrics that rhyme. A little Broadway magic tonight.